Our next speaker is Sarah. Perfect, thank you, Zach. Sarah was a lawyer early in her career at Google and at other firms. She then left law and was the founder of 3 startups. Her third startup, Headnote, grew to be the leading payments and services company for law firms, and she is here to tell us all about it. Come on.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. Thank you to Zach and to Elizabeth for inviting me to speak here today. And I'll just be totally honest. When I went to prepare for today, I found it to be more challenging than when I prepare for speaking engagements normally. Because normally I speak about things related to company building, how to build your business, how to evaluate your startup idea, things related to fundraising or go-to-market. But today is different, because as you can see, I'm talking about my journey to entrepreneurship. So this is something that's a deeply personal story, one that is exciting because I get to talk about some of the things that I did really well, and that worked out. But also, it wouldn't be the full story if I didn't also talk about some of the things that didn't go so well. Some of the missteps, some of the mistakes, some of the failures that I made along the way. And as startup founders and leaders and CEOs, that's just not something that we do normally. Publicly talk about things that were mistakes we made. In fact, it's just the opposite in my experience. In the Bay Area, especially in the startup community, it's more the I'm crushing it narrative, right? No matter who asks, another founder, an investor, an advisor, whatever the question is, we're crushing it, and we're about to do something new, and then we're gonna crush that, and everything's going great. So you don't ever get a chance to really be vulnerable. And so what I decided is that I am going to talk today with authenticity and vulnerability, which is uncomfortable, but I think something that we should all probably do more of, because I think it helps other people. And what I thought about was, what does my journey, what are the pivotal moments that had something in common? Like, what's the through line here? What's the thread? And what it was is that I am really good at pivoting, like super, super duper good. And pivots don't always have to be 180s, right? It can be a game of inches, it can be tough decisions. And that was what kept coming back to me, was all of the really hard decisions I had to make, the things that would affect the failure or the success of the company, the things that would make me decide if I was gonna continue on this journey as a startup founder, if I was gonna go find another journey. So I've decided to call this the art of the pivot, and that's really how I think about my journey so far. And so I think that we all kind of are here because we have a dream, and most of us are living some form of the life that we dreamed about when we were kids or when we were growing up. And if you go onto Instagram, it looks like everyone is living their dream. And everyone's always on a vacation you weren't invited to, and everything is super duper glossy. And it has a way of making us all feel like imposters in our own life. And unfortunately, LinkedIn has turned into that, I think, for professionalism. So there really is like no real dream that we're all living online. And when you are a startup founder, it's no different. Running a startup is really hard. It's really challenging. It's never smooth or bump free. And if you go onto LinkedIn, you're probably gonna get caught up in the I'm crushing it visual, right? That's gonna be there. And I think that breeds, like I was saying, imposter syndrome. And that's something we all struggle with. So today we are gonna talk about some glossy stories, and then we're gonna talk about like, what's the real story? Because I think behind every really glossy story, there's something that's really happening. So, there we go. Okay, so the next natural questions are, who am I? And why, what's my story, and why should you care? So as Mike said, my name is Sarah Schaaf, and I have worn many hats in my career so far. I started as an attorney. I was a litigator, and then I was at Google, and I left Google to become an entrepreneur. And I co-founded a company called Headnote, which I ran and was the CEO of until it was acquired. And today I am a partner at a startup advisory firm called Enjoy the Work. I'm actually the newest partner. And this is like my dream job because I get to work with founders and creatives and risk takers and really brave people that are trying to fulfill big dreams. And frankly, I get to help other people solve their problems, which is much easier than solving your own problems. So that is a dream come true. So just a little bit about my glossy story. In keeping with the theme of glossy stories, I'd like to tell you my glossy story. So as Mike said and as I said, I am an attorney originally, but that is not where my relationship with the legal industry started. I am the child of 2 attorneys, and both of my folks owned their own law firms. And so growing up, that was our family business. We talked about it at dinner. That was where I would go on the weekends, or if we needed extra help around the law firms in the summertime or something. That's what my brother and I did. And so I became a lawyer. And I ended up litigating, and then I made my way to Google. And while I was at Google, I had this eureka moment that no matter where I had worked, from solo practitioners' offices to Fortune 1 companies, there was one thing that all lawyers had in common, and that was that it sucked to get paid. There was paper checks, was pretty much the only way that you paid your lawyer. It took lawyers 90 days on average to get paid. 86 cents on the dollar was the realization rate. And I couldn't understand why. So I dug in and started doing a bunch of research. And what I found is that every single major payment platform, from Stripe, Square, PayPal, Braintree, Venmo, you name it, prohibited lawyers from using those platforms to get paid. And that was due to the regulatory and compliance issues that lawyers face from the bar associations. And so I decided I wanted to solve that problem. I left Google. I co-founded Headnote in 2016. In 2017, we raised our first round of venture, and we were off to the races. Over the next couple of years, we raised a couple more rounds of venture, and in 2019, we had inbound interest from multiple private equity firms to acquire the company. Legal tech had become very popular with private equity that year. Everybody wanted in-house payments. And so we decided to partner with one of those, and my team and I joined the parent company. I sat on the executive leadership team for that parent company, and 2 years later, Headnote was acquired again by another private equity firm called Francisco Partners for a healthy 9-figure amount. And I left the company 6 years later, 6 years after we founded it, in very capable hands. Sounds like, yeah, thank you. It sounds like super glossy and clean and linear, and everything just kind of worked out, but it's also edited. And it is true, but it's not the whole truth. So I did leave Google to become an entrepreneur, but I was convinced I was going to start a consumer company. And I did. I actually started 2 of them, and they both failed. And I pretty much glossed over that in my telling of my professional history from that moment onward. And then a couple of months ago, I was talking with a colleague who said something like, yeah, but you're just a one-time founder. Like in a way that was like, oh, you had it like easy. Like you made a company and it worked, and like you don't really know what you're talking about with, you know, hustle or with getting through hard times. And I got kind of defensive, and I said, no, that's not true. I've founded multiple companies. I'm a 3-time founder, and I'm a serial founder, and I'm really proud of that, and I wear that as like one of the badges of honor and one of the hats that I'm most proud of. And she was like, well, you can't tell that. Like, there's nowhere that I can see that about you. Online, it's not on your LinkedIn. And so I decided, she helped me see, that those moments were actually some of the ones that I should be the most proud of, because those are the moments that showed me how scrappy I could be, how persistent I was, how resilient I am. And it showed others that too. And so I updated my LinkedIn, and now I do wear those like a badge of honor, and they're 2 of the things on my professional career that I'm most proud of. So in the theme of being open, let's talk a little bit about those companies, the ones I never talk about. So the first one was a company called Foxy Mama. And this was essentially Stitch Fix for maternity wear before Stitch Fix did that. Super great idea. Unfortunately, it's a product, not a company, right? You don't have the customer long enough. You pay a CAC, a customer acquisition cost, to acquire the customer, and then they leave after they've had the baby. So your LTV on that customer, your lifetime value, isn't enough to rationalize the CAC. An LTV to CAC ratio is something that I like to look at company evaluation, and I think it should be at least 3 to 1, and it did not have a 3 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio. Okay, so Foxy Mama didn't work, but we had proven that there was a market need for it, There was customers that wanted it. I learned a lot, I put together a team. And so the team and I went back, talked with some of our investors and advisors, and we pivoted that into Expectantly. So Expectantly was a revolutionary way for parents to participate in the sharing economy for high-end things that they use for their babies and toddlers and families. Again, it's a great idea. I still get approached at least once or twice a year by experts in the field or leading brands about why this didn't work, essentially. People really want to figure out how to make the rental economy work for this. So with Expectantly, again, we raised money, same cap table as Foxy Mama. We got the first ever rental agreements in place with major brands, Up a Baby, Baby Bjorn, you name it. We had warehouse space in the dog patch in San Francisco. We had hundreds of beta customers. We had an exclusive partnership with Method to do all of our cleaning with family-friendly products. And we got a lot of attention. But unfortunately, what we learned with that one is last mile logistics are really hard. Things, shipping and logistics in general, difficult. But the biggest thing we learned is that we were facing our biggest competitor, which was human behavior. People were doing this. They loved the idea, but they were already doing it with their neighbors and their communities, with spreadsheets, sharing stuff. And I learned from that competing against human behavior is something that is my least favorite type of competitor. I'd much rather unseat an incumbent than have to change the way that people behave. So at this point, we had a team, we had investors, we had money left in the bank, and we had made some really amazing connections. We had really smart people that were working with us, and we decided that we wanted to go back to the drawing board. And at this point, we had to make some really hard decisions. Like, are we really meant for a business like this? What have we learned so far about businesses? What are we attracted to and drawn to? Well, what I had learned was that unit economics for a SaaS business were far more appealing to me, personally. I'm a software person, as it turns out. I didn't have enough experience, besides being a consumer, to actually be the credible founder of a consumer company like this. There was just too many odds and ends that I didn't have the right background for, even with making up the right team around me. So, after we looked at things like unit economics, founder market fit, where is a big market that has a big space? What's something that we can make that would actually solve that problem? Headnote was born. So Headnote is the fastest, most modern way for law firms to get paid online. It serves a big market, over $300 billion of legal spend in the US every year. It was a product that customers desperately needed, one big incumbent that I felt absolutely excited to unseat. And it was something that I had actual passion and customer expertise and experience for. And so Headnote was born in 2016, that part was true. We did raise our first round of venture in 2017, also true. And the rest of it, kind of, the glossy version is technically true, but I cannot underemphasize how difficult it was along the way. How many hard decisions there were to make, how you needed to make them so quickly, how you didn't always have the data that you needed to make those decisions, but it was your job to find the data and to keep following the data to make the choices that are going to lead you to the next information event so you can make more choices. So that really is, for me, how it all comes down to pivots. So my first takeaway, as I looked at my journey that I thought would bring any kind of value to this group today, is that your journey is really a series of pivots. And the sooner you can embrace that and not be afraid of it, or not think of pivot as like a bad, dirty word, the better. And like I said, it could be a 180, like taking a maternity company that turned into a luxury goods for kids shared model company and turning it into a B2B payments platform for SMB law firms. While I might add, keeping the same cap table and the same investors. These were some difficult conversations to explain, but everybody stuck with us and we're happy in the end. Pivots can be like that, or pivots can be just figuring out that you need to maybe make that really important hire, or maybe you need to let go of that hire that isn't right for your company anymore. So don't be afraid of the pivot, embrace the pivot. It's how Thomas Edison got to where he was. It's how we're all gonna get to where we're going. And the last takeaway is you can't do it alone. You are gonna need a lot of help no matter what kind of business you're in. If you're in ag, if you're in wine, if you're in software, or whatever it is that you're doing, you're gonna need the support of a lot of people. And that's what this group is all about here today in this room. We are growing this network here so that you have somebody that you can meet here today, and friends and new people that you can call when you need someone to listen to your pitch, take a look at your deck, make that intro, help like pick you up off the ground, or when you hit a wall, help like pull you back down to earth, or help you keep going. You can't do it alone, so ask other founders. Ask people that have walked in your shoes before. Don't be afraid to reach out on LinkedIn and send a cold email to that like really big get person that you want to talk to. You never know when they're going to write back. I've had more people write back to those than I can express today. Because there's so many founders out there and leaders that have made mistakes and they want to share them because it helps bring more value to those experiences. So what it turns out for me is that I was passionate about being an entrepreneur. And it didn't really matter what the product was as long as I had the passion for it and as long as I could get out there and find the right people and the right team. So I hope you guys take that away, as well as the fact that I just love being a founder and working with founders. And hopefully, when you're in your breakout groups later today over lunch, you can start getting to know new people and ask them about some of their biggest mistakes. Ask them about some of their biggest failures and what you can learn from them. And you'll remember that you don't have to do it alone. And good luck. Thank you.